We don't know what's going on here. Do we have sound?
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't have sound. We didn't have any sound?
Right.
Okay, we're on live now. Beautiful tire factory here. I have to start over because we didn't have any sound, and we don't want those of you out there who can't hear or whatever not to hear us. So we are live. This is the Cow Report coming to you live from the beautiful tire factory right here in downtown Eau Claire. And of course, this is our brand new studio here, and Roy Rogers Hoff and Fred the True Stafford worked many, many days building this studio here for us so that we would have this beautiful studio so that you could watch and your eyes would be delighted by their sights. And as usual, we have many things to talk about here on the old Cow Report, and I'm your host Chuck Lee, and we're bringing this session of the Loyal Order of the Raccoons into session. And if anyone out there has seen Roy Rogers Hoff or Fred the True Stafford, call in and let us know, because they're both AWOL tonight. I don't know where they went, but they're not here. And as usual, we will be taking phone calls, and there's your number, 839-6261. Excuse me. Now, we do have a lot to talk about. First of all, we were right on all of those predictions on the elections last Tuesday. Of course, you know Fred was going to vote for Howard Phillips. He was wasting his vote. Him and about 500,000 other people wasted their vote on that. Of course, it wouldn't have done any good because we picked a lousy candidate for president this time as Republicans, so we deserved to lose that one, and we did. I picked Ron Kind, an upset in the primary, and he upset Harsdorf again in the general election. Also predicted that the sheriff would switch hands to Kramer from Hewitt. That happened. And so we're batting 100 as usual right here on the Cow Report. Okay, on this date in history, November 11th, 1865, the first Medal of Honor awarded to a woman goes to Mary E. Walker. She was also the first woman surgeon in the United States Army. I presume that was during the Civil War. 1865 was the date. And also on this date in history, 1921, President Warren G. Harding dedicates a tomb in which America's unknown soldier is buried in ceremonies attended by some 100,000 people. Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God. And of course today is Veterans Day. And also on this date, 1889, November 11th, the 42nd state, Washington, joins the Union. Okay, and as you know, since this is Veterans Day, there's a survey that came out saying that 1 in 3 veterans, 1 in 3 people seeking shelter for the homeless shelters served in the military. And of course that is really too bad in this country, but we have a lot of homeless veterans. You can see them in any major city, and one of the main reasons was they never have really closed and bound the wounds of Vietnam, so we have a lot of veterans that are still involved in alcohol and drugs, and they just have never been able to pull their life together after the situation and what they experienced in Vietnam. And so the wounds are still open there, and that we really haven't closed the chapter on Vietnam there. And the sadder thing is we're letting all kinds of illegal and legal aliens into this country, and a lot of them end up on welfare, and they're getting in line in front of these veterans that fought to keep American borders open to immigration, and now they're losing out. They're standing there and watching people go around them and get to the front of the line and taking those needed benefits that we could be using, those scarce tax dollars to be using to help the veterans that need that kind of help. I don't see, the survey found that 34% of the 10,400 men seeking refuge were veterans of war or military service. So there's still a lot of homeless out there. Many of them are veterans. Well, as you know, The Green Bay Packers lost yesterday. And, of course, that'll just make it more interesting when we get into the final playoffs and the Packers go to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the Minnesota Vikings, which is my team when they're not playing the Packers, and I'm kind of neutral for both teams, but so I'm a Packer fan and Vikings fan, and the Minnesota Vikings have basically collapsed. Unless they can find something that works, their season is pretty much over. Isn't that right, Mr. Common? And of course, over here to my right, your left, is the common man. He's been gracious enough to loan his head to this program just for tonight. Now, if you want to call in, the number is 839-6261. And we got some mail here from Vienna, Virginia. Let's see what's going on out there. Vienna, Virginia. Not too much. Howard Phillips should be president. Well, he's not. We have Bill Clinton for another 4 years, so you might as well get used to it. And if anyone has seen Fred out there, please call in, because Fred is missing again. I don't know what it is about that guy, but every few weeks he goes on a bender or something, or goes fishing, or goes spearing for carp. When he gets out there fishing for carp, you just can't pull the guy away. Yeah, here's what I was looking for. See what's going on out there in the conservative world. Boy, this one's old, October 31st, the Howard Phillips Issues and Strategy Bulletin. Yes, let me see. The dollar's days are numbered. Wall Street Journal. German Chancellor Helmut Kohl is hell-bent to make monetary union a reality by January 1st, 1999. Germany and France in particular are staking their national prestige and that of the European Union on achieving that goal. The bureaucracy, so it's all blah, 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 and a lot of blah, blah, blah in there. Not much of anything going on. But we got a lot of fish to fry here tonight on the old cow report. And of course, I wanted to remind you, yes, here it is. We better take this call first, and then we'll get to some serious business. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. Okay, you're going to have to turn down the old television there. Yes, you're going to have to turn your TV down. We're getting feedback off of it there. Okay, we'll try that one again later. There's somebody's giving us a little feedback problem there. So if you want to call in, you have to turn off your radio or TV, whichever you're listening to. All right, the Eau Claire School Board has approved a 2.15% raise for Superintendent Lee Hansen. The increase raises Hansen's salary from $92,900 to $94,900. And boy, he's worth every penny of it. And of course, that doesn't count all the benefits and the several weeks of vacation time and 12 or 14 holidays and a couple of weeks off at Christmas time and the golf outings and all the seminars around the world and the plethora of staff underneath him that does all the work. All he has to do is show up at a board meeting sober every month, and he gets $94,900 in greenbacks. Enough to make you want to throw up. All right. Well, we already went over the election results. Plumbaum Schaefer. Schaefer beats Plumbaum 53-47. I guess it finally caught up with Plumbaum, his pass there. Ron Kine for 52, Harsdorf 48. So that was the name of that tune. All right. And if anyone out there sees Roy Rogers Hoff or Fred the True Stafford, you better call in. And by the way, we're going to have to retire this here until 4 years from now. And I don't think they might be able to read that phone number there. It looks like it's, I can't read it even here on my monitor. All right. What do we have here to talk about? There we have it. Now, you can't all be watching that lousy football game. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a monitor in here with the football game on it on Monday night so you can watch this show and the football game at the same time. That'll straighten all that business out. That'll take care of all that. Or what we could do is we could tie you all to a tree and smear you with peanut butter and call you Skippy for the next hour. Would you like to do that? All right. So for your pledges, call 839-6261. Send all your money into 839-6261. Okay, now, let's see. If I had a phone book here, I could call people. I could call the governor and people of that nature. Of course, now there's nothing to talk about. The elections are over. We might as well just close up and go home. Let's see, here's one here. Headline says, Clinton connected to cocaine network. Former insider Charlene Wilson talks candidly from Arkansas prison. Charlene Wilson is a woman in her early 40s who is presently serving a 31-year sentence in the state women's prison at Tucker, Arkansas. She was convicted of selling half an ounce of marijuana and $100 worth of amphetamines. Why did she receive such a long sentence for such a relatively small crime? Wilson claims it is because, as a former insider in the Arkansas drug traffic, she knew too much about the people involved, including the man who is now President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Wilson says she met Clinton in the 1970s through her relationship with his brother, Roger Clinton, who later became her boyfriend. She was a bartender at the Little Rock nightclub called Le Bistro, where Roger performed with his rock band, Dealer's Choice. She says that in those days, Governor Clinton frequently patronized the club and would often snort cocaine there. On one occasion in 1979, she claims, she sold 2 grams of cocaine to Roger, who immediately gave some of it to his brother, the governor. Wilson also frequently attended wild toga parties at the Coachman's Inn outside Little Rock, where guests from the Arkansas Insiders clique would wear sheets, do drugs, and share sexual partners. She says she saw Governor Clinton using cocaine at these parties. In the 1980s, Wilson began to help federal and state anti-drug agencies as she tried to escape from the drug culture. Gary Martin, a federal drug enforcement agency officer based in Little Rock, vouched for Wilson's reliability. I have no reason to doubt her word, Martin said. In 1990, Wilson testified as the star witness before a secret federal grand jury convened at the request of a special task force investigating drug involvement by Arkansas public officials. Under oath, she implicated Bill Clinton and other prominent people of conspiracy in drug use, smuggling, and even murder. But according to Gene Duffy, who headed up the drug task force, within days the investigation was closed down, and Duffy herself was hounded out of her job for being too diligent. She now lives in a secret location in Texas. Wilson was subsequently entrapped and imprisoned. Charlene was my best informant, Duffy recalled. They couldn't silence her, so they locked her up in jail and threw the key away. That's Arkansas for you. What follows is an excerpt of a recent interview with Wilson conducted from prison by telephone by a member of the Citizens Intelligence Digest, Citizens for Honest Government staff. Did your boyfriend Roger's brother, Bill Clinton, ever use drugs in your presence? Yes, she said. This friend of mine did drugs many times in my presence. There were always other people present also. It occurred different time and at different places, sometimes in clubs and sometimes in hotels. I was never alone with him doing drugs. Why do you believe you are in prison? I believe I'm in prison because of what and who I know and witnessed. I feel I'm lucky to be alive because other people connected with the situation are already dead or missing. Another reason that I'm in jail is because of political reasons. I have been asked lately by a number of people why I am here. I was given 31 years and an $11,000 fine at sentencing. But the U.S. grand jury has turned the verdict around. Now I'm waiting for the lower courts to fix it by a new trial, or just let my time run out. So it looks like she's going to get out that 31-year sentence. Of course, she could run into some kind of accident like driving down the road and get hit with some stray bullets or something. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, how much of this do you believe, what you just read?
How much of this do I believe? 110%.
110%? I don't believe any of it.
Well, you could if you're going to keep your head in the sand the rest of your life, you're really going to be in trouble, because first of all, you're going to suffocate. Second of all, you're never going to be able to see things around you. There have been quite a few murders down in Arkansas, and a lot of them kind of emanate from or emanate to the former governor of Arkansas and some of his pals. There have quite a few people been beat up or murdered or both. Now, what public officials do you know that are corrupt? There are so many, but Dan Harmon comes to mind first. And from the past is Bill Clinton, Don Tyson, Judge John Cole, and the drug task force that was involved with my case. What were the toga parties? Who attended? Tyson, Harmon? The toga parties were a group of people, mainly women, wearing sheets. Sometimes they wore something under them, and sometimes they didn't. Occasionally they would strip, sometimes they paired off, and sometimes they would swap out. It all depended on who was there and what the situation was. This usually happened at the downtown Coachman's Inn in Little Rock, Arkansas. That is no longer there. At one of these parties is where I met Tyson for the first time. Of course, she's talking about the Tysons that own the Tyson food empire. He offered me $350 to spend the evening with him. I asked my boss, Pat Vesey, if I gave him $50, could I go off work? I worked at the Club Car Lounge as a waitress and bartender. He said yes, so when Tyson gave me the $350, I gave my boss the $50, and I spent the evening with Don Tyson. I met Dan Harmon through this group and was his mistress for years. Dan Harmon would set up the parties, and sometimes I assisted. The women, time and place had to be arranged. These would occur once a month. Usually Roger Clinton's rock band, Dealer's Choice, would play at these occasions. And do you feel any danger to yourself or your family? Yes, I do believe our lives are in danger to an extent. My family members have received strange calls. I want to say that my family has nothing to do with my life and my involvement. They are innocent and should not be threatened in any way. So there you have it. I think that's the end of that deal. All right. Well, I think Roy Rogers Hoff finally stumbled in here. Is that you out there, Roy? All right, yeah, Roy Roger Hoff's here. Roy, that's a nice studio you built here. You and Fred do that on your spare time for making tires, or what? He's not saying much. He's not saying much because of coming in late. He's tardy. I'm going to have to send you down there to the Eau Claire School Board for being tardy. Maybe they'll give you a $50,000 raise or something. All right. Now, of course, if anyone has seen Fred out there, please call in. And if you want to talk about any other issues, like the elections that just came up, and if your favorite person won, or if you want to talk about anything here that's going on in town, of course, you know the City Council is meeting tonight, and they're going to give you a present at your next time you open your tax bill. They're trying to raise your taxes again. And by the way, there's two liberal leftists on the Eau Claire County Board are pushing for a 0.5% sales tax. And they're talking about all the wonderful things it's going to do for us by giving it to us, this wonderful 0.5% sales tax. But of course, if you recall, Lorraine Lee said right on the show that you watch, they're going to try and bring this 0.5% sales tax up again to use part of it for the arena, and who knows what the other part of it will be for. I'm sure it'll be to increase the county and city bureaucracies and make them be more intrusive in your life. And of course, on the city level, they're trying to hire 8 or 9 more. They want to put 8 or 9 more police officers on the force here in town, so that we'll have 8 or 9 more revenue agents running around writing tickets at $100 a pop or whatever, so they can increase and get more revenue in the pot, so they can spend that also. But basically, that's what law enforcement is turning into. Is they're doing about 50% law enforcement. The other 50% is they're kind of an arm of the local tax agencies, and they're just revenue agents with guns. All right, there, we have a call on the old line there. We want to welcome all you people who just tuned in the Rice Lake area and Hudson and down in Fall Creek and, of course, La Crosse. Welcome to the program. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
I watch your show a lot. I really love it.
Well, thank you.
What's the deal about this tax increase? What are these jerks going to be doing to us now?
Okay, well, the whole deal is they're going to try and push through a 0.5% sales tax, so that when you buy something in the county of Eau Claire, there'll be, instead of 5%, it'll be 5.5% at the checkout counter. It'll be on pretty much whatever's taxed now. This 0.5% will be tacked onto that. And what they do is they raise that money, it goes into the county and city coffers, and then they sit around and they stay up late smoking Cuban cigars, deciding how they're going to spend it.
I see. What kind of sales tax did you pay on that hat? That's a nice hat. I just wanted to ask you where you got that. I have nothing against it.
That's a genuine raccoon hat.
Raccoon hat? Did you get it yourself, or?
No, my brother makes these.
Oh, your brother makes them?
Yeah, he makes them out of roadkill, and they are. That there balloon was one of the balloons that was still falling from the Republican National Convention. If you caught that there in the background. But yeah, this was, there.
Yeah, that's really neat that he makes them out of roadkills, because sometimes my dad makes fishing lures out of the tails and stuff.
Yeah.
Skunks, too. They make nice flies.
They do?
Yeah.
Well, great. What do you fish for, carp or what?
No, trout.
So if you were backed up in a corner and you had your choice, would you fish for 30-pound carp or 5-pound trout?
What has me backed in the corner here? I need more info. I need more input on that.
Let's say you're on an island and all there is to fish for is carp and trout. What would you fish for?
I'd probably fish for the 30-pound carp because there's more food on them.
Yeah?
Yeah. It depends if I had some corn and a hook. I mean, but if I had flies, I'd probably just go for the trout.
Well, I've caught 30-pound carp before and threw them away. They're about the slimiest, ugliest, stupidest fish I've ever seen in my life.
Well, they serve a purpose, though. They clean up the bottom of the river, so.
Yeah, and they're destroying all the good fish, or they're hogging it up. You see 30-pound carp, and then you see scrawny little sunfish and bass, because the carp are eating everything in sight.
I see. Yeah, you got a good point. You got a good point on that.
We got to eliminate carp.
Okay.
You know, if we eliminate carp, then
You should run for office, and that could be like your ticket.
then we could.
Oh, damn carp.
If there was no carp left.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry to cut you off, but where's Fred?
That's what I was going to say. If there's no carp left, then Fred would be here then instead out carp fishing.
That's where he's at?
Yep.
Oh my God.
He's shining for carp right now. He's got a spear in one hand and a great big flashlight in the other, and he stands there for hours on end.
He's probably, oh my God.
Spearing for carp fish. Then he comes in here and makes tires all day.
I see.
And of course, he built this studio behind me here. Roy and Fred spent many, many days and hours on this studio.
I see.
Okay, so do you have any final questions before we get on with the program here?
No, I'm kind of at a loss right now. I can't really think of anything else.
Okay, I'll ask you one. On this date, actually November 12th, 1942. The age of this is lowered to 18 during World War II by President Roosevelt.
The draft?
Yep. And you win, you win a 30-pound carp. It'll be,
Oh, come on. I want something.
yeah, we'll think of
At least
something.
maybe just some, I don't know, compliment or something on my intelligence, maybe.
Okay,
Had a
yeah.
little bit of help on that one, though.
Well, thanks for calling in. There was an avid carp fisherman, and we appreciate those kind of calls, and we're glad that you called in like that. And he got that question right, so that tells me that there still are some intelligent young people out there that when they can get an answer like that right when they weren't even born yet. Of course, another thing that happened on the November 12th, which is actually tomorrow, in 1980. Flying within 77,000 miles of Saturn, Voyager 1 discovers more rings than previously known. And I don't know what kind of rings those were. Rings around their collar, rings, maybe that's what it was. Rings around the collar of Saturn. And so we spent $680 million to go find more rings around the collar of Saturn. All right, Roy, we got a caller, or is that just another troublemaker? Okay. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. I'd like to know what you think about Officer Kramer as a write-in candidate.
Well, I think that everyone should go down to the polls tomorrow and vote for Ron Kramer. And don't forget to spell his name right, otherwise it won't count. C-R-A-M-E-R, Kramer. Don't forget to vote tomorrow, November 12th, 1996.
No, sir. He's already the sheriff. What do you think as a write-in candidate that this man made it and no one else has?
Well, I think he did a pretty good job. He's already won, huh?
Yes, sir. Do you think he'll do a good job?
Well, you know, when that, the present sheriff will be leaving office in January. He's been in there for many years. He did a fairly good job. He just took a little heat over an incident in his life that...
Do you think that was unfair, that what the media did against Officer Hewitt?
Well, I think the unfair part of it was that it was covered up. And if it was a Republican, it would have been splashed over the front page of every paper in the state, especially if they were running for re-election. But in this case, it was covered up, one cop washing another cop's hands, and it was kept quiet for close to a month or more.
How do you mean that?
Because it was the incident happened a month before it was publicized in the paper, and the Leader Telegram talked to the city manager of the Leader Telegram, and he said that as soon as they found out about it, they printed it. So for several weeks it was covered up. It was just not...
I think that was unfair.
Well, of course it was, especially in election year. You need to know those things about politicians. It's just fair to the voters. And so once it was exposed, then it was downhill for Hewitt from there right down to the elections. It was downhill because it looked like the fix was in and the good old boy system was in operation, and the Cuban cigars were smoked in the back rooms, and the whole thing was covered up. Well, somebody stumbled across it and exposed it in the paper, and I guess you have to give the Leader Telegram some credit for publishing it, but that's what was the main reason why 2,000 some people voted, 2,000 more some people wrote in Kramer's name and voted for Hewitt, and
Was it?
and now he's
It was a lot closer than that, sir. The voter,
I think it was
the voting public was a lot closer now, wasn't it?
Well, I got the paper from last Wednesday right here. Kramer 54%, Hewitt 46. Kramer 18,658 votes, Hewitt 16,087. So that's 2,600 votes difference.
Oh.
So it wasn't even close.
So
And Kramer did all that as a write-in. So
could you really say that bad publicizing against Hewitt really had a throat?
yep, in politics, unfortunately, that's what happens. Now, in Kramer's case, you have to give him credit. He really didn't talk about that. He just ran on.
He was going to run already.
Yeah, he just started. He started in 2 hours early. Well, this gave him the opening, and now he's the new sheriff. So we'll go from here on it. He's in the drug enforcement, West Central Drug Enforcement group, and now he's the sheriff. And from what I understand, he's going to do some changes in the jail, which is overcrowded and filthy, and there's been some beatings of prisoners in there and people sleeping on the floors. And I understand he's going to clean that up, and they're going to look at some ways to save some money for the county. So we'll just have to see what happens. But it doesn't mean that Hewitt was a bad sheriff. It just means that in politics, people change and people come and go. And now it's Kramer's time, and it's time for Hewitt to move on to something else. Possibly he'll run again in 2 years or whatever. But right now we have a new sheriff for the next 2 years. So there you have it. A new sheriff for the next 2 years. And hopefully he won't hire 20 or 30 or 40 new cops, and we'll have 40 new revenue agents running around the county, writing tickets to fill the county coffers with more money for those left-wing radical wackos down there at the county board that spend their money. They stay up all night smoking them Cuban cigars, raising our taxes and spending our hard-earned money. Maybe this is Fred. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, we have a question for you. It's controversial. We wonder if you think we should remember Congressman Gunderson for his personal life or as being a good congressman.
Well, you know, he was our congressman, good or bad, for 16 years, so evidently more than 50% of the 3rd District voted for him and liked him, or at least more than 50% of the voting members of the 3rd District voted for him all those years. He was elected. He did what he had to. He was in the minority, I think, 14 of those 16 years in the minority position, so he couldn't do much. He did finally get a subcommittee, I think it was chairmanship for the last 2 years of his term, and he was in line to become the chairman of the Agriculture Committee, which would have been very powerful and would have helped Wisconsin, but he vacillated, wouldn't make up his mind, wouldn't go public and say. What he should have did was just said, okay, Harsdorf, I'm back in the race, best man win the primary. Instead, he flitted around and caused all kinds of problems and all kinds of bad feelings amongst the Harsdorf and Harsdorf supporters, and needless to say, he refused to endorse Harsdorf, and by refusing to endorse Harsdorf, he did a silent endorsement of Ron Kind, which made the difference up and gave Kind the needed votes to get over the top and win. Now the thing is if Kind can't be knocked out 2 years from now, he'll be in there for 16, 18 years or however long he wants to be, because the statistics show that after that first term, when you come up for your first re-election bid, if you can get over that hump, you're in there as long as you pretty much you want to. 96 or 95% are re-elected after that after their second try. So if Harsdorf runs again, he's going to have to do it next time, or that seat's going to be locked up with the Democrats for many years to come. And of course, not taking anything away from Gunderson's 16 years in office, Gunderson made a very serious mistake by not endorsing the Republican candidate who won the primary, and by being silent, he gave a wink and a nod to Ron Kind and helped Kind get elected. So I think his stock right now is very low in the 3rd District Republican Party, and any of his followers are going to be pretty much booted out of office at the next 3rd Congressional District Convention, and in some of these county Republican, 3rd Congressional Republican Convention will be coming up in the spring of '97. That's where they'll be picking the new leadership to lead the 3rd Congressional District Republican Party. And within that, there's something like 17 or 18 county parties. They'll all be holding their own elections for officers, and there'll be probably some shakeups there, and a lot of Gunderson loyalists and supporters will be booted out of office because of what Gunderson and his people did. They pretty much handed the election to Kind. So what do you think about that? Evidently, he likes it. Okay there, well now we have Roy Rogers Hoff on board. Now all we have to do is find Fred, the true Stafford. If anybody sees him out there, please give us a call at 839-6261, and please continue to send in those cards and letters and money. And make those $1,000 checks out to the Cow Report. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. I'd like to know what you think that Richard Hewitt has done in the last 10 years as a sheriff, as opposed to the other scams that he has done. Like years ago, he got picked up for he called a sheriff for a ride home when he was intoxicated, and has got away with abusing office like this.
Well, it's not really abusing office. From what I understand, he's done a pretty good job. He's kept the jail in pretty good shape. I don't think there's been any major breakouts. I don't think anyone's been murdered up there in the jail, and it's been, the jail has pretty much been overflowing for many years. But
do you think that's okay to be drinking at a
here's what I'm getting
tavern and just to call a squad car and give you a ride home?
I remember that
Is
incident.
that abusing it?
Well, it's several years. He probably abused that instead of calling a cab. He called probably a friend on the police force.
And you think that's okay, sir?
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Huh.
You think that's just okay because he owns a public office like that?
I don't recall saying that was okay. What I was getting at was basically when you have a problem with alcohol or drugs, you do a lot of stupid things in your lifetime. And when you're a political figure and you're in the public eye and you're involved in alcohol and drugs, and you do stupid things, then you get exposed in the media, and you have to take more heat than normal. Any normal person, it would blow over in a day or two, but when you're in the public eye and that happens, it doesn't blow over in a day or two. You lose elections like Kramer did and like Plombaum did. And unfortunately, that's the facts of life. Now, Plombaum went into treatment for a couple of days and then skipped out, and now he admitted to, at a live audience somewhere just before the elections that he's drinking again. And when you're an alcoholic, you can't drink again. You can't do that because you can't control your consumption, and that's why you're considered an alcoholic. Now, in the case of Hewitt, he's had a couple bouts with drinking and his law enforcement, and he was off duty on this latest incident, and I don't know, he was probably off duty on the other one, but he made the mistake of calling for a sheriff's deputy or a city policeman to come and get him and take him home, which was the right thing to do because he didn't want to drive under the influence. He just made a judgment error on how he got home. In this most recent case, it was just a matter of he had too much to drink, and being the sheriff, you're under pressure, and it caused some problems. But if he has a serious drinking problem, then he has to make the decision to get help, to help himself. He can't do it for his wife or his kids or for the city of Eau Claire or for the sheriff's department. He has to do it for himself. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that lady that called, the first call you got there.
Yeah.
And I really like what you told her. She doesn't really even have a clue, and most of the time when people talk like that and ask stupid questions such as that, they're pretty much not informed very well, and they're pretty much being blinded by a lot of rhetoric that media and that a lot of the politicians do put out.
Well, if you look at the president as just as a symbol and an idol, and you look up to him and you don't go past the veneer that you see on TV, and you just pretty much think everything's Camelot and hunky-dory, then that's fine. But this man is a scrapper, and he fought his way up to the top, and when you fight your way up to the top, there's casualties. There's been a lot of casualties in this president's tenure as first Attorney General of Arkansas and then governor. He pretty much drove this state of Arkansas into bankruptcy. It's one of the poorest states in the nation. It's at the bottom in every statistical, at the bottom or next to the last in every statistical thing you can think of, including welfare, pay for teachers, education. I mean, it's a nice place if you're 70 years old and you want to retire in the mountains or in the hills down here in Arkansas. But if you're trying to make a living down there, or if you're trying to get educated, that's not the place to be. And 12 years of that was under Clinton's watch. And also there was a lot of bodies that piled up while he was governor of Arkansas, and a lot of people were chased out of the state and threatened with murder. Several women claimed that they were raped by Clinton, that he exposed himself, his sexual organs to various different women. One woman has a lawsuit against him in that area right now, and it's in the federal court system, whether it's going to be tried now or after Clinton's out of office. There's some serious trouble in a little place called Mena, Arkansas, where many tons of cocaine were brought in from South America and then redistributed around the nation. That was done while Clinton was governor of Arkansas. And the list goes on, and as a matter of fact, it's not any coincidence that 6 or 7 people in the Clinton cabinet are bailing out and skipping town.
Oh, yeah, I'm seeing that.
And it's not any coincidence that Ron Brown died in an airplane crash on the same plane that Hillary rode a week before.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about what happened there, too.
So there's a lot of stuff going on, and they don't call him Slick Willie for nothing. He's been...
Well, they talk about records, too, you know, and they say, well, he did this and he did that. I mean, his record as far as, you know, creating jobs and stuff, a lot of that was done by the governors and by the states and stuff, but you have to really look at his character. I mean, and his record as a person, not just his record as a politician. You know, that's something we all got to carry with us through life, you know.
Well, now that the elections are over and the darling of the media, which was the Clintons, is elected now, he has nowhere to go. He can't run for president again. Now the media nationwide is going to start to turn on him, and they're going to start exposing some of these things. And this next 12 months, starting in January, are going to be very serious. Like Ross Perot said, there's a constitutional crisis coming up. We're going to go through Watergate number 2 with all of these. There's probably a half a dozen very serious major federal investigations going on relating to the Clintons in different areas. And these investigations are at different stages. And Kenneth Starr is in the process of writing up indictments which supposedly will be indicting, if not President Clinton, at least his wife and several members of the present and past cabinet, and some other higher-ups around the nation. So it's going to be pretty sad for the next couple of years. We could end up with Al Gore as the president.
I have one question, and then I'm going to let you go.
All right.
There was in Colorado, there was a bill or whatever, it was being passed on if they were going to start taxing churches, and I still haven't found out the answer to that, if that passed or not.
They're going to start doing what?
If they were going to start taxing non-profit organizations and church property.
Okay, we're cutting out here. Are you on a speaker? Are you on a...
I'm on a...
Yeah, you're cutting out, but from what I think you said they're going to start taxing churches and nonprofit organizations.
In Colorado.
Okay, well...
I don't know if that passed or not.
The left-wing socialists and communists in this country have always bellyached for the last 35 years that separation of church and state. So now they're going to come after the churches and start taxing them, then it won't be separation of church and state. See, there's a God-given right where churches are separate from government. And the churches were never taxed to begin with. But the churches have taken upon themselves to put themselves under the yoke of government by taking a 501c3 tax status, so that so they've set God up as they've set the government above God, and they look to the government, and they have to answer the government, or their church will be shut down and their tax status will be taken away. So unfortunately, the churches have put themselves in this situation. The churches never had to get a 501c3 tax status to begin with. They were tax exempt before that. And some of your older mainline churches never did go under that, because it's not the government's right to be taxing the Christian churches. But some of these newer, modern, high-flying, hotsy-totsy, hotshot, college-educated pastors have come out, and the first thing they do is they get that 501c3 status so they can get all the tax benefits that go with that, but they're putting themselves under the thumb of the government. They're not answering to God, they're answering to the government. So that they become basically government churches. That's pretty much the situation you had in Russia under 70 years of communism. You had government churches that were regulated by the government, and they had their spies right in the churches, and the government told them how to preach and what to preach. And if they didn't do it that way, they were shut down. Then you had the churches that were underground, and they were the true churches in Russia. And so that's what you're seeing happening in this country. You're having underground churches pop up that aren't going to go under the 501c3 thumb of the government, or you got the government-controlled churches that are still under that tax-exempt status. And so they're not the true church. True church answers to God, not to the U.S. government.
Amen. Thanks.
All right. So there you have it. So if you're in a 501c3 church, go to your pastor and say, what are you doing tying yourself up with the United States government for? You don't have to be under that thumb. You don't have to because once you get under that, you have to start answering to all the rules and regulations, and before you know it, they'll be having government social workers in there preaching instead of preachers. That's what you want. Keep it up. Okay, so there we have it. So, you know, it's one of those things that where in life you just have to say to yourself, Fred, come back, all is forgiven. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Oh, I'd like to know what your opinion is of county child support, about someone that makes a good wage and takes their child, you know, understanding that I pay 17% and takes their child every weekend, and they don't adjust that at all as far as what you have to pay and what you're putting up with that child, and still they take 17%. You know, you're feeding the child and being a good parent all the time. Do you think the 17% is fair?
That's 17% every paycheck, or 17% a month, or a year, or what? 17% of everything you make?
Yes, sir, out of every paycheck.
That's just for one child?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's really not too bad.
No, you have to understand.
Okay, if you're making $20,000 a year, that's $3,400 you're giving to that child. Could you live on
400? Oh, no, sir. I'm paying like over $6,000
You're making a pretty good salary then. So if you're paying,
Yes, sir.
that's on one child?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but think of it this way. Could you live on $6,000 a year?
Well, the mother is making a good wage herself, and I think that they should just adjust for the fact that we do take our child and we care for him every other weekend, what our caring rates are. And
well, unfortunately, these divorces are no fun, and when there's children involved, that's what happens. The government has to step in, and the judge says you're going to, well, it's state law, but they say you're going to have to pay this much to the spouse, and whatever it is, 17% per child. That's one of the casualties of getting a divorce. But on the other hand, you want to make sure the child is raised properly, and unfortunately, sometimes that money doesn't go to the child. It goes to the mother, who might be using it for all kinds of other things like illicit drugs or what have you. And so if that's the case and she's not spending it on the child, then you need to go back to the courts or get a lawyer or whatever and say, hey, this money's supposed to be going towards child support and not into other things. But that's the way it is. If there wasn't mandatory child support, then the child ends up being a ward of the state. So there was a union between a husband and wife, and the child was born out of that union, and it's both of your responsibilities to make sure that the child is taken care of, and that's the way it's set up. It's that way pretty much all across the nation now, and you're gonna have to live with it. Either that or get back with her. If you can't do that, you're gonna have to live with it. You want to make sure that the child is raised properly. Okay, we have some information here about, I was just seeing something here that I didn't like. Okay, I'm going to make a prediction. You'll probably see Representative Steve Gunderson given a job in the Clinton administration. Clinton is now holding out an olive branch to the Republicans because when some of these investigations and federal investigations, which are taxpayers' dollars, are being spent on them, to come to a culmination and the final indictments are handed down and the chips fall where they may, there could very possibly be the President of the United States going through using the Congress as a going into, whoops, I have a message hot off the presses here. Oh yeah, here we have a level here, on the child support, 17% for one child, 27% for two, 29% for three, and 31% for four kids. 31% for four children, if you're making $20,000 a year, that's about $6,000 for four kids. That's not much money to raise kids on nowadays. If you bought tennis shoes or books for school or food, if you take four kids to McDonald's, you're going to spend $12 easy. It's very expensive to live these days. Somebody has to foot the bill, or Uncle Sam is going to have to be mommy and daddy. But anyway, my prediction is that when everything is settled, and we could very well have to see Congress hold a trial to decide whether Clinton's innocent or guilty, or even if not that, there'll be some other trials for some other higher-ups in government. So Clinton is holding out an olive branch, and I think pretty much the fix is in now. Hey, I'm going to start shifting to the right. I'm going to be more conservative. I want to bring in 5 or 6 Republicans into my cabinet, and I'll share government with you, and we're going to get rid of this national deficit. We're going to start looking at welfare, cutting it more, and so Clinton is moving to the right now, and at least for now. He could very well move to the left if Hillary has her say, because I'm telling you, Hillary ran with the communists before she met Bill, and after she met Bill and dated Bill, she was right in there in the thick of the American Communist Party movement. Go ahead, you're on the air.
So I really don't think that Hillary is a communist. But
what do you know?
oh, sir, that is not a true statement. I'm back to child support. At 17% now, and I told you what I paid a year. You got that. So I make $40,000 a year, and you think that what I pay is fair and take my child every other weekend, and during the week, you think that that's fair? Don't you believe that the child support could start flagging down guys like me that take care of their children? I mean, actually do take care of their children, good fathers, and could say that, you know, maybe that's a little too much.
Well, that's the formula that they've set up down in Madison for this state, and
You know, no, you can't tell me that that is fair. because they do not govern how much of that money that I spend on my child. I love my child. I want you to know that. And how much of that goes for my child.
Okay, well, thanks for that information, but it's there's nothing I can do about it here. I do have the gavel here, but we have to change those laws down in Madison so that that can be remedied. But if you know, if you're, what you can do is go back and ask the judge for more custody and a reduction, maybe cutting that down to 9% and taking the child more instead of just weekends. Take the child 2 weeks out of the month, split it down the middle, and then that'll probably be reduced. But in the meantime, my prediction was that you're probably going to see Representative Steve Gunderson offered a job in Clinton administration. Something to do like a new position created, Minister of Gay and Lesbian Affairs, or something of that nature. You might laugh now, but that could very well be in the offing. He's only 40-some years old. He's not going to get out of politics at that age. He's going to keep his finger in the pie, come back and run for United States Senator someday, or something higher up, maybe even governor of Wisconsin. So, and he pretty much handed the 3rd Congressional District to the Democrats on a silver platter, and so he's probably going to get paid back with a good job in the Clinton administration. And this is the final call of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. The final call. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
First of all, you don't have any children, right?
Okay, well, there you have it. Yes, I do. I have 2 children. And if anyone's seen Fred out there, and if you see him fishing, you tell him he's in big trouble, because we had a lot of appointments tonight that he missed. And I don't care what he says. He's got tires to put on down here. He's got tours to show. And Betty says now that he's feeling better from that little minor stroke he had. I guess he's back almost 100%. And so, Fred, all is forgiven. You can come back to the show. We want to thank you for building the new studios here behind us. And of course, Roy Rogers Hoff has been very, very helpful the last 35 years. And even Roy, once in a while, misses an evening here on the wonderful Cow Report. And so we want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again right here on the old Cow Report next Monday night. Adios, amigos and amigas.
Behind it. This is these